Welcome, dreamers, to another journey through time's hidden corridors. I am your guide through the dreaming historian, where ancient mysteries whisper their secrets to those who dare to listen. Tonight, we lift our gaze to the heavens and drift into the shimmering realm of ancient star maps. This is a tale older than parchment, carved not in stone but in the firmament itself. From the deserts of Mesopotamia to the icy skies of the far north, our ancestors looked to the stars not merely for wonder, but for wisdom. In their silent dance across the velvet night, celestial lights guided ships, foretold the seasons, and shaped the very rhythms of early civilization. Before we embark on this mystical journey, if these whispers from the past resonate with your soul, let your presence be known through a gentle like, and join our circle of dreamers by subscribing for more nightly journeys into history's hidden realms. Share with us, fellow dreamers, from which corner of the world you are joining tonight's contemplation. Let our global community of mystery seekers connect across time zones as we drift together into the past. Now, settle into comfort, close your eyes, and let the ancient voices guide you into peaceful contemplation. Long before the first temple stone was set into the earth, long before ink-stained scroll or law-etched tablet, there was the sky. It stretched endlessly above the early humans, those quiet wanderers of prehistory, its canvas awash with glimmering points of light, without cities or lamplight to dim its glory. The night sky was a theater of vastness and fire. The Milky Way spilled like a silver river from horizon to horizon, and the stars blinked like living embers in the black breath of night. They gathered around fires. Those first dreamers, cloaked in animal skins, the air thick with smoke and pine sap, with nothing but the stars above and the shadows of beasts in the dark beyond. They watched for hours. They watched. Children clutched at their mothers' legs while elders pointed silently to constellations only they could yet understand. It was here, in the echoing void of the primeval night, that the first star maps were born, not drawn in charcoal, not scratched into bone, but traced with reverent fingers in the sky itself. Each star was a mystery, yet none seemed random. They rose and fell with a rhythm. Certain stars came only in the warmth of summer. Others heralded the icy claw of winter. The moon waxed and waned, and with it came tides, moods, and time itself. The heavens were not mere decoration. They were alive. They were the calendar and the clock, the compass and the oracle. These celestial rhythms became memory. Oral tradition passed them down, encoded not in symbols but in story. A hunter follows a line of stars in pursuit of a beast that never died. A goddess weeps, her tears spilling as meteors across August skies. The stories taught how to navigate the world, when to sow seeds, when to seek shelter, and over generations, those stories became sacred. In caves, now silent, archaeologists have uncovered clues to this ancient star. In France, in the painted walls of the Lascaux caves, dots clustered around the bull, the Pleiades perhaps, cradled above the back of Taurus. Was this the first attempt to chart the sky? Not in ink, but in ochre and above the steppe, in what we now call Ukraine, circles of mammoth bones once housed the living. Inside, charred remains of fires line up with the setting sun at solstice. Did they align their dwellings to the light of distant suns? Did they sleep beneath open roofs, letting starlight chart the shape of their year? In northern Africa, nomadic tribes carved spirals and symbols into stone spirals that eerily matched the movements of planets through the heavens. These early sky watchers may have wandered, but the stars always called them home. As we drift deeper, we begin to see that the first star maps were not maps at all, in the way we understand them. They were sacred memories, constellations of meaning more than shape. They were written in fire and rhythm, passed down in lullabies and campfire tales. And so a question forms: did these early people know more than we give them credit for? Were they not simply surviving, but understanding? Could the sky, unpolluted and unspoiled, have whispered truths that we have long since forgotten? In the stillness, we imagine one such dreamer, perhaps a woman in her twilight years, her hair silver like the moon above. She draws her finger across the air, tracing the line of Orion's belt. She murmurs the tale of the hunter and the chase. Around her, children listen, the sparks of the fire dancing in their eyes as stars do in the heavens. There, in that moment, knowledge passes on. The stars are remembered. Even now, some tribal cultures preserve fragments of this ancient sky lore. In Australia, Aboriginal star knowledge predates Western astronomy by millennia. To them, the dark spaces between stars like the emu in the sky matter just as much as the bright constellations. Their stories hold knowledge of tides, seasons, and ceremony, encoded in the night. It humbles us. The stars we see today are the same those early dreamers watched. Their stories may be buried, their names forgotten, but the sky remains. The same silent teacher, the same gentle mystery. Let us pause, breathing in the quiet. Imagine the scent of smoke, the flicker of flames, the weight of fur upon our shoulders. Above us, the stars drift slowly westward, eternal, unchanged. We are no longer in the present. We are seated among the first astronomers, the silent listeners, the keepers of the cosmic memory. As this chapter closes, Let the sky above remain vivid in your Minda map, not only of stars, but of stories. We walk forward now, from these first stargazers toward those who would etch their knowledge into stone and build monuments to the heavens. Let the breath of the first night sky stay with you, dreamer, as we move forward through time. Let us journey now from the fires of the nomads to the great stone sentinels that rise from the earth, silent and solemn beneath the stars. Across continents and centuries, our ancestors began to do something extraordinary. They did not merely observe the heavens, they sought to anchor the sky to the ground. With stones, with circles, with shadows, they built monuments to mark the movements of light and darkness. These sacred sites became calendars in stone, temples to time, and doorways to the stars. We begin in a mist-laden field in England, where monoliths stand like frozen giants. Stonehenge. Even today, its worn stones hold secrets. Aligned with the rising sun on the summer solstice, the monument becomes a theater of light. As the first rays crest the horizon, they strike the hailstone, casting long shadows that trace the circle's arc. Was this architecture of the cosmos a gathering place to welcome the longest day, a way to honor the return of the sun, the rebirth of light? It is not alone. Scattered across the British Isles are dozens of similar megalithic structures. Whispering of a sky-watching culture that viewed time not as a line but as a circle. They watched the sun's path, not with clocks or digital tools, but with stone and patience. They watched for years, generations, until the pattern revealed itself. Consider Newgrange, older than the pyramids, nestled in the rolling hills of Ireland. Each year, at the winter solstice, a narrow shaft allows sunlight to pierce the dark inner chamber. For 17 minutes the tomb is bathed in golden light. The event is so precise, so intentional, that it leaves little doubt. This was more than burial. This was resurrection, rebirth, the promise of light's return. The stone was a womb, the sun a key. Star maps were no longer just oral stories. They were becoming architecture. Further south, in the dry highlands of Malta, the Kagontaja temples rise, their massive stones, weathered but watchful. Their entrances face the soul. The builders aligned their sacred spaces with the heavens above, anchoring spiritual rites to celestial rhythms. Were prayers lifted as the sun crowned the doorway? Did songs echo through those stone corridors timed with the tilt of the earth? Let us drift further east, to the mountains of Armenia, where a circle of stones stands in quiet salt. Some call it the Armenian Stonehenge, with over 200 basalt stones, many pierced with perfectly round holes. Karahanj may have functioned as an observatory. The holes align with various celestial bodies, the rising of Sirius, the constellations, the sun. What did they see, those ancient sky priests, when they knelt and peered through these stone portals? And in Egypt we find Nabdapli, a site older even than the pyramids. In the heart of the desert, megaliths form a circle, aligned with the summer solstice and the rising of certain stars. Beneath this remote sky, ancient peoples tracked the heavens to predict rains, the flooding of the Nile, and the rhythm of life itself. What ties these places together is not technology, but reverence, a reverence for the sky, a desire to know its rhythm, to bind it to human ritual and memory. These structures are not merely ruins, they are echoes of intention, celestial logic carved into Earth's bones. Imagine, for a moment, a night thousands of years ago. You're a guardian of the stones. The air is cool. Your hands rest on weathered surfaces, still warm from the day's sun. You look east, you wait. Slowly, the first star of the summer triangle appears. You mark its rise. You note its angle. It is time. Time to prepare the fields. Time to hold the feast. Time to begin the sacred chant. These ancient astronomers did not wear robes or crowns. They were farmers, midwives, craftsmen, yet they held in their minds a map more vast than any kingdom, a map of stars and seasons, encoded in stone. In Peru, the Chancalo Towers provide yet another glimpse into this knowledge. 13 towers stretch along a ridge, and from the observation point below, the sun rises between different towers throughout the year. The towers form a horizon calendar, a solar calendar built not on paper, but on the land itself. The sky became a guide not just for ritual, but for governance, for agriculture, for life. And still, questions remain. How did they know such precision? What memories were passed that taught them to trace these patterns? Did they dream of the sky as we do? Did they believe the stars were ancestors, or gods, or silent watchers? As modern light dims the sky, we lose not just stars but the context of our ancestors' wonder. Yet here, in the memory of these stones, their voices still speak. The monuments hold the silence of 1,000 rituals, the echo of songs sung to stars, long since shifted. They remind us that humans once lived in harmony with the heavens, not separate from it, but embedded within its rhythm. So let us honor these places not as ruins, but as celestial instruments, each aligned stone, each carved shadow, a note in the symphony of the cosmos. As we leave this chapter, dreamer, picture the circle of stones beneath moonlight. The stars are bright above. A torch flickers in the distance. The sky shifts slowly, and with it, the story continues. We step forward now into lands where the sky became scripture, and the priests of the stars etched their wisdom onto clay and bone. Beneath the shimmering sky of the Fertile Crescent, where two great rivers cradled the cradle of civilization, there once rose a land of ziggurats and cuneiform, of priest-kings and starlit rituals. This was Sumer ancient and golden, where the heavens were not only watched, they were recorded. The night sky above Sumer was wide and unclear, its stars wheeling above the palm-fringed canals and mud-brick cities. Here astronomy was born, not in abstraction, but in sacred duty. To understand the heavens was to understand the will of the gods. The stars were not merely lights. They were divine scribes, celestial messengers whispering secrets to those who dared to decipher their code. In the city of Ur, under the watchful gaze of the ziggurats, many tears, the first astronomers climbed night after night, scrolls of clay at their side. There, above the markets and the temples, they observed the stars with disciplined reverence. Each rising and setting was recorded. Each eclipse was noted. Over time, patterns emerged. With astonishing care, these watchers of the sky carved into clay the earliest known star charts, astronomical records that would guide empires and sow the seeds of science. The Sumerians gave names to the stars. Many of those names echo still. The constellation we know as Taurus was the heavenly bull. Leo was the great lion. Gemini, the twins of heaven. They assigned meanings and omens to each. A falling star might warn of a king's death. A particular conjunction might herald flood or famine. But the Sumerians did more than interpret, they organized. They divided the sky into zones. They measured celestial motion across 12 divisions, what we would later call the zodiac. This division was not arbitrary. It was the slow accumulation of night upon night, generation upon generation, watching the same stars return in the same places. Time itself was carved into the heavens. They tracked Venus with particular devotion, naming her Inanna, the goddess of love and war. The planet's brilliant rise in the east and its disappearance into the west became a sacred cycle, a divine dance mirrored in myth and ritual. Venus disappeared for days at a time, only to return. To the Sumerians, this was Inanna descending into the underworld and returning reborn. Myth and astronomy were inseparable, two halves of a celestial truth. Imagine, dreamer, standing atop a Sumerian ziggurat under the ink-black sky. The river below murmurs softly, fireflies drift through reeds, and a bronze oil lamp flickers at your feet. You hold a stylus in your hand and stare skyward. There Venus gleams, her silver light reflected faintly in the canal. You etch her position into a wet clay tablet, the cool night air wrapping around you like a sacred shawl. In that moment, you are both priest and scientist, poet and scribe. The Enuma Anu Enlil, a massive collection of celestial omens, remains one of the oldest surviving texts in human history. Spanning hundreds of clay tablets, it is a catalogue of what the sky has shown and what it might mean. Each eclipse, each haloed moon was recorded and linked to events on Earth. The idea was simple and profound: the universe speaks. All one must do is listen. The temples of Sumer were not only houses of worship but also observatories. The priests were trained in the movement of stars, the timing of eclipses, and the rhythm of planetary motion. Rituals were held at specific phases of the moon. Offerings were made when stars crossed certain thresholds. Time and divinity danced together, measured in stars. And then there were the Molopin tablets, perhaps the most refined legacy of Sumerian stargazing. Written in Akkadian, the successor to Sumer. These tablets list the risings and settings of 70 constellations, describe the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, and even suggest a method for telling time by the stars. They contain the seeds of celestial navigation, the breath of the first calendars. This was no mere superstition. It was proto-science, rooted in observation, repetition, and memory. The Sumerians did not yet have telescopes, but they had something just as powerful: patience and devotion. Their records stretched across centuries, and from them, the notion of cosmic order was born. Their influence would not die. The Babylonians, their descendants in spirit and stone, would expand upon this foundation. Greek scholars centuries later would translate their work. Even today, the echoes of their observations linger in our horoscopes, our calendars, and the constellations we teach our children. As the chapter wanes, imagine that same priest-astronomer returning to his chamber as dawn breaks. The clay tablets are now full, lined with wedge-shaped symbols. He places them carefully in a kiln to be dried. In doing so, he preserves not just knowledge but memory. Memory of where the stars once stood and what they meant to those who looked up in wonder. Let us carry that wonder forward now, to a land of dunes and pyramids, where the stars were not just watched but summoned into alignment, with stone monuments that echo still with the silence of eternity. In the ancient sands of Egypt, beneath skies that have remained unchanged for thousands of years, the stars once guided kings and shaped eternity. Here, in the desert's embrace, the earth meets the sky not with questions, but with declarations carved in stone. The pyramids of Giza rise like frozen sun, aligning perfectly with the stars that shimmered over the Nile when the world was young. These were not merely tombs. They were celestial machines, stargates, cosmic compasses that reached toward eternity. To the ancient Egyptians, the sky was more than a canvas, it was a living map of the divine. The stars were not distant suns, but the luminous souls of gods and kings. The Milky Way was the celestial Nile, flowing through the heavens as its earthly counterpart flowed through the valley below. The sun was Ra, traveling across the sky by day and through the underworld by night. And the constellations, they were divine stories, guardians, and guides. It is here, in this sacred geography of spirit and stone, that we find some of the most profound examples of ancient star mapping. Consider the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the largest and most enigmatic of the trio. Its four sides are aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west. But it is what lies within that whispers of celestial purpose. Two narrow shafts stretch upward from the pyramid's inner chambers, piercing through layers of limestone. These shafts are not for ventilation. They do not align with the seasons. Instead, they point towards specific stars, most notably Orion's belt and the star Sirius. In the southern shaft of the king's chamber, the alignment with Orion is nearly perfect for the time in which the pyramid was built. In the queen's chamber, the northern shaft targets Thuban, the ancient pole star of the time. Why Orion? Why Sirius? In Egyptian cosmology, Orion was associated with Osiris, the god of the dead, rebirth, and the afterlife. Sirius, bright and blue-white, was linked to Isis, Osiris's sister and wife. Each year, Sirius's heliacal rising just before dawn heralded the inundation of the Nile, a sacred moment of renewal, abundance, and resurrection. It was a divine sign, a breath of life from the stars themselves. To align a pyramid with these stars was to forge a bridge between earth and the divine. The pharaoh, entombed within, would ascend through these shafts like a star reborn, joining the gods in the eternal sky. The pyramid, then, was not a tomb. It was a resurrection engine. But it was not only Khufu's pyramid that aligned with the heavens. The layout of the three pyramids at Giza mirrors the pattern of Orion's belt. Two large structures aligned closely, with a third, slightly smaller one offset to the left, just like the stars on Nitak. This celestial mimicry was no accident. It was intention, translated into stone. The ground became a mirror of the sky. Egypt itself became a cosmic reflection. Let us drift now into the desert night. The stars are sharp and innumerable above. A procession moves silently toward the western horizon, carrying the body of a pharaoh wrapped in linen scented with myrrh. The priests chant softly, their voices rising like incense into the dark. As they enter the shadow of the Great Pyramid, the sky above aligns the belt of Orion directly overhead, Sirius shimmering in the east. It is a moment outside of time. Earth and sky, body and soul, stone and starlow in harmony. The Egyptians saw death not as an end, but as a return, and the stars were the route home. Beyond Giza, in the Dendera temple complex, a ceiling bears the famous Dendera zodiac, an intricate celestial diagram showing the heavens in birth. While it dates from a later Greco-Roman period, the symbolism is unmistakably Egyptian. Zodiac signs blend with ancient gods. The sky is alive with movement, cycles, and sacred geometry. Even here, late in Egypt's long twilight, the stars were still revered. The priests who guarded this knowledge were not merely astronomers, they were keepers of cosmic balance. They tracked the stars to align temples, time rituals, and for the calendar itself, based on lunar and stellar cycles, was refined and exacting. Time was sacred, and so were the instruments that measured it. One cannot help but wonder how this knowledge came to be. Was it passed down from observation alone, or was it, as the Egyptians believed, a gift from the gods? Thoth, the ibis-headed deity of wisdom and time, was said to have brought the science of the stars to mankind. Were the ziggurats of Sumer and the pyramids of Egypt linked not only by trade and time, but by a shared desire to read the sky? And what of the Sphinx, gazing east toward the rising sun? Some scholars have speculated it once aligned with the constellation Leo during a distant epoch. Was this great guardian also part of a star map, an earthly symbol of a celestial lion? As we drift through this chapter's end, Dreamer imagined standing in the burial chamber deep within Khufu's pyramid. All is silent. The air is cool and heavy. Then, lifting your eyes, you peer through the shaft above. There, framed in darkness, a single star gleams. It is not just light. It is a message, a destination, a promise. With the pyramids, the Egyptians etched their understanding of the heavens into permanence. In these colossal monuments, we hear a voice not of power, but of purpose, a longing to rise, to ascend, to return to the stars. And so we continue now, to the east, across desert and mountain, to a place where stars were painted not on ceilings, but into the very beliefs of the people, etched into bronze, bone, and oracle, beneath the ancient skies of China. beneath the shifting mists of ancient China, where mountains touched the heavens and rivers wound like silk through jade valleys. The stars were not distant fires. They were dragons, ancestors, and divine omens. In this land of poetry and paradox, the sky was a sacred scroll, written not with ink but with light. To the people of ancient China, the cosmos was a living body. Heaven, earth, and humanity were interconnected in a grand harmony, known as the mandate of heaven. The emperor was the son of heaven, and his reign was tied to the balance of the universe. When stars moved in unusual ways, when comets appeared or eclipses darkened the sun, it was not merely an astronomical event. It was a message, a warning, a shift in the cosmic rhythm. And so, from the earliest dynasties, China cultivated a deep and intricate tradition of celestial observation. Let us begin not with a monument, but with an artifact in ancient bone. At Anyang, the last capital of the Shang dynasty, archaeologists uncovered oracle bones etched with questions and answers. Among the divinations were references to eclipses and planetary events. These bones, cracked by fire and interpreted by royal diviners, are some of the earliest records of Chinese astronomy dating back over 3,000 years. Yet the roots go deeper still. By the time of the Zhou dynasty, skywatching had become institutionalized. Imperial astronomers were appointed to observe and interpret the heavens. Their task was not science as we know it, but cosmic governance. They charted the paths of the sun, moon, and 5 visible planets, each tied to one of the 5 elements of Chinese philosophy: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. The stars formed a celestial bureaucracy, reflecting and reinforcing the earthly one. The Chinese sky was divided into distinct zones. Unlike the Western 12 constellations, Chinese astronomy used a system of 28 lunar mansions, known as Z. These were akin to stepping stones along the moon's monthly journey. Each mansion corresponded to a specific region of the sky, a season, and even an animal or deity. Together, these mansions formed the 4 celestial palacistra, 4 symbols of Chinese cosmology: the vermilion bird of the south, blazing with the fire of summer; the white tiger of the west, heralding autumn's harvest and meadow's sharp clarity; the black tortoise of the north, coiled with a snake, protecting the depths of winter and water. These were not mere symbols. They were cosmic guardians, woven into rituals, myth, and imperial authority. When the azure dragon rose in the east, farmers knew to begin planting. When the white tiger prowled the west, armies marched. Let us walk now through the imperial court of Luoyang, where bronze instruments gleam under the starlight. The year is 100 BCE, the Han Dynasty. In the observatory, astronomers in silk robes consult star charts, carefully drawn on bamboo scrolls. They use armillary spheres, intricate frameworks of rings that model the heavens. With them, they measure the angles of stars, the arc of the sun, the heartbeat of the sky. It was here that Zhongheng, a polymath of the 2nd century, built one of the world's first seismometers and refined celestial instruments with mathematical grace. He saw the universe as a great dome, turning above a square earth. His cosmology was not cold calculation, but a poetic balance: yin and yang, heaven and earth, light and shadow, and in stone, to the sky found expression. Carvings on ancient tombs show the movement of celestial beasts, the lunar mansions, and the journey of the soul through the heavens. These images were not decorative. They were guides, maps for the departed, to help the spirit navigate the stars. Among the most mysterious is the star map of Dunhuang, hidden in a cave along the Silk Road for over 1,000 years, drawn on silk in the Tang Dynasty. It shows over 1,300 stars, precisely. The chart includes the 28 mansions, the Milky Way, and annotations in fine brushwork. It is one of the oldest extant star maps in the world, a testament to both precision and reverence. But perhaps the most haunting legacy of Chinese celestial knowledge is the meticulous recording of supernova, what they called guest stars. In 1054, Chinese astronomers observed a brilliant light appear in the sky. It remained visible for nearly 2 years, even in daylight. They recorded its position, brightness, and duration. Today, we know that light as the Crab Nebula, a supernova remnant, still expanding, still glowing in the void. From bones to bronze, from myth to map, the Chinese saw the heavens as a vast conversation, a dialogue between order and change, between emperor and eternity. As we drift to the end of this chapter, picture a scholar sitting by candlelight, his brush hovering over silk. He pauses, then begins to draw carefully, plotting stars he saw only moments ago. Outside, the night is clear. The azure dragon coils above the eastern horizon. The moon glides across the sky, a silver boat on an endless river. And within that stillness, there is knowing. We carry that knowing forward now, across the mountains and the steppes, to where a different kind of knowledge burns, etched, not on silk, but on bronze discs buried in forested lands. Let us travel next to the heart of Europe and a most mysterious artifact of the ancient sky. In the heart of Bronze Age Europe, long before the rise of Rome or the sacking of Troy, an artifact was buried beneath the earth. Hidden for more than 3 millennia beneath the soil of what is now central Germany, it waited silent, circular, and copper-green with age. When it finally emerged into the modern light in the year 9, it did not reveal a sword, a crown, or a mythic beast. Instead, it gave us something far older, a map, a mystery, a whisper from the ancient sky. This was the Nebra sky disk, and it may be the oldest known concrete depiction of the cosmos in all of Europe. Just 30 centimeters across, the bronze disk bears gold inlay, simple, yet profound. A golden sun or full moon dominates the left center. A crescent moon, delicately shaped, floats beside it. Scattered across the surface, 32 golden dots shimmer like stars, with a tight cluster that many believe represents the Pleiades, the seven sisters that guide so many ancient peoples through planting and harvest. 2 golden arcs frame the sides of the disk, boundaries of light. These arcs align almost perfectly with the sun's setting and rising points of the summer and winter solstices. If viewed from the Mittelberg Hill near Nebra, a third arc, added later to the bottom, may represent the sun's celestial boat, echoing ideas found in ancient Egypt, where Ra sails across the sky by day and through the underworld by night. But this disk is not Egyptian. It is not Sumerian. It is European, and it tells us that the people of Central Europe, often cast in shadow compared to the civilizations of the Nile or Mesopotamia, were watching the sky with care, with purpose, and with reverence. The Nebra sky disk was buried alongside swords, axes, and bracelets, suggesting it was revered, perhaps even sacred, not a tool of war, but a tool of wonder. Imagine the forested world of Bronze Age Europe. Around 1600 BCE, the air is thick with the scent of pine and wildflowers. Mist coils between oaks and ash trees. High upon a hill, a group gathers at dawn. They hold the disk, polished bright, turning it slowly to catch the rising sun. They speak in a language now lost, murmuring prayers or songs. As the sun crests the trees, it aligns with the disk's arc, confirming what the stars have already told them: it is time. Time to sow, time to reap, time to call the gods by name. Though we know little of the culture that created the Nebra disk, we know they were skilled in metallurgy, agriculture, and long-distance trade. Tin from Cornwall, amber from the Baltic, and ideas that moved silently from one hearth to another across lands divided by forest and river. The very concept of using a portable object to track celestial events speaks of a kind of proto-instrument, a bridge between oral tradition and measured knowledge. The disk may have helped align temples or seasonal festivals, or perhaps it was used in teaching, storytelling, or initiation. In any case, it was not a toy, it was treasured, and it was buried with intention, as though its time had ended or its magic sealed for another age. The presence of the Pleiades is particularly telling. These stars, visible across the globe, form one of the oldest known celestial markers. In the Mediterranean, in Egypt, in the Americas, they appear again and again in myth and skylore. To see them on the Nebra disk is to glimpse a shared memory, a thread of recognition stretching across humanity. Some have speculated that the disk may reflect a fusion of cultural knowledge, a meeting point between local Bronze Age traditions and ideas brought by travelers, traders, or perhaps even seers. The golden arcs may encode knowledge not just of solstices but of more complex astronomical cycles, the lunar calendar, the movement of Venus, or the synodic rhythm of the moon's appearance. But beyond its function, the disk stirs something deeper. It is, quite simply, beautiful. The elegance of its design, the simplicity of its symbols, it speaks to a reverence for balance, harmony, and the eternal dance above. It is not a manual, it is a meditation. As you drift deeper into thought, picture holding the disk in your own hands. The metal is cool, heavier than expected. You tilt it toward the firelight, and the golden stars flicker as though alive. Behind you, trees sway in the night breeze. Above, the real stars twinkle through the leaves. You realize this disk is not a relic, it is a mirror of the sky and of the soul. The Nebra sky disk asks no questions, it offers no commands. It simply is a quiet, perfect expression of humanity's longing to understand the sky. As we close this chapter, let us return the disk to the earth for a moment, not to forget, but to honor. For in that act of burial was not loss, but trust. Trust that one day, the stars would speak again, and someone would be listening. We listen still. Now, let us travel further west, to a land of sun-baked stones and sea winds, where the Greeks transformed sky stories into science, and constellations into a cosmos of logic and light. On the sunlit shores of the Aegean, where olive trees grow from stony soil and the sea hums with ancient memory, a different kind of stargazing began to take shape. Here, under skies as clear and endless as thought itself, the Greeks looked to the heavens not only for myth but for meaning. They sought not only to honor the stars, but to understand them. While earlier cultures wrapped the sky in stories and rituals, the ancient Greeks began to ask why. Why do the stars move as they do? Why does the moon wax and wane? Why do eclipses come and go with such mysterious regularity? Their answers, carved into scroll and spoken in shaded courtyards, would echo through the centuries. Let us begin with Thales of Miletus, a figure draped in simima, who is said to have predicted a solar eclipse in the 6th century BCE. Whether or not this prediction was precise, it marked a turning point in an attempt to read the sky not through divine intuition, but through pattern and reason. Thales is often credited with bringing Babylonian star wisdom to the Greek world, blending inherited lore with a spark of rational inquiry. From Thales came Anaximander, who imagined the earth not as resting on the back of a turtle or a cosmic pillar, but as a floating cylinder, suspended in space, free and unattached. Radical for its time, this idea hinted at a cosmos governed by geometry rather than caprice. And then there was known for his love of numbers. He believed that harmony existed in all things, including the sky. The planets, he said, moved to a silent music, a celestial symphony of spheres. Though we hear no sound, he taught, the harmony is a deep, inaudible rhythm that governs the universe. To the Pythagoreans, the heavens were not a place of chaos, but of order. Each orbit, each star, each cycle was part of a greater whole, a mathematics of the divine. Let us walk now through the Stoa of Athens, where shadows fall on marble and young scholars argue beneath fig trees. Here Plato taught of a cosmos fashioned by a divine craftsman, the demiurge who created the universe according to perfect forms. The stars, to Plato, were divine souls, guides and guardians in the great rotation of the spheres. His student, Aristotle, would take a more structured path. In his layered cosmos, Earth sat at the center, surrounded by concentric crystalline spheres. Each held a heavenly body: moon, sun, planets, and fixed stars, all turning in harmonious motion. The outermost sphere, the prima mobile, imparted motion to the rest. Though we now know this geocentric model to be incorrect, it reflected an elegant vision, a universe ordered, comprehensible, and complete. But it was Hipparchus, in the 2nd century BCE, who moved from theory to measurement. Using careful observation, he catalogued nearly 1,000 stars and created the first known trigonometric table. He discovered the precession of the equinox is the slow wobble in Earth's axis by comparing his own observations with those of Babylonian astronomers. It was a stunning realization. The stars were not fixed. The sky itself was moving, ever so slowly, through time. And then, the great Ptolemy, who in his Almagest assembled and refined centuries of astronomical knowledge, he laid out a geocentric model so intricate and convincing that it would hold sway for over 1,000 years. Circles within circles explained the retrograde motion of planets. It was a model of beauty, even if flawed, that placed humanity at the center of a grand celestial clockwork. Yet, even amid this pursuit of order, the Greeks did not abandon wonder. Their myths still lived among the stars. Orion still hunted across the winter sky. Cassiopeia still sat vain and luminous upon her crooked throne. The constellations were not discarded in the age of logic. They were woven into it, becoming both map and metaphor. Consider Aratus, the poet-astronomer of the 3rd century BC, who penned Phenomena, lyrical guide to the constellations. His verses brought the sky to life with gentle rhythm, transforming cold stars into familiar companions. His work was beloved by scholars and emperors alike, showing that science and beauty need not be strangers. Imagine dreamer standing in a colonnade at dusk. The sea breeze is soft. A scroll lies open in your hands, inked with the positions of stars. You lift your gaze and find them: first Altair, then Vega, then the great arc of the Milky Way. You know their names, their myths, their motion. And in that moment, you are part of something vast and ancient, not merely observing the stars but conversing with them. It is this blend of myth and measurement, of reverence and reason that defines the Greek contribution to celestial history. They did not tear the stars from the heavens to cage them in theory. They drew closer instead, seeking their rhythm, their story, their soul. As this chapter fades into starlight, let us carry forward that same spirit, not of conquest, but of contemplation. For the heavens do not demand answers. They offer invitations. And so we journey onward, past the lands of reason, to a world of burning sands and sacred texts, where stars guided pilgrims across deserts and time itself was wrapped in verses divine. In the golden twilight of the Islamic world, from the libraries of Baghdad to the desert domes of Sinai, a new stargazing tradition rose, a fusion of inherited wisdom, mathematical precision, and deep spiritual reverence. Here, beneath skies as vast as thought itself, scholars watched the stars not merely to chart them, but to praise the order placed there by the Creator. The Quran speaks often of the heavens not as cold space but as a sign, and indeed, we have placed constellations in the sky and beautified it for the observers. The stars were adornments, guides for travelers, and markers of divine harmony. The faithful were urged not only to believe, but to reflect, to contemplate, to seek knowledge in creation itself. And the sky was the first, greatest classroom. With the fall of Rome and the dusk of classical antiquity, much of the ancient knowledge of Greece, Persia, and India might have vanished, but it did not. It was gathered, translated, preserved, and expanded by Muslim scholars during the Islamic Golden Age. In this luminous age, astronomy flourished like a constellation reborn. Let us walk now into the House of Wisdom in 9th century Baghdad, a beacon of intellect and sanctuary of thought. Within its walls, under lantern light, teams of scholars translate Greek texts into Arabic, Aristotle's cosmology, Indian star charts, and Persian lunar calculations. But they do not merely translate, they refine, they expand. Among these visionaries is Al-Khwarizmi, whose name would give us Al-Khwarizmi. In addition to mathematics, he wrote treatises on the movement of celestial bodies. He reformed the astronomical tables of his time and introduced new methods of calculating planetary positions. And then there is Al-Battani, called the Ptolemy of the Arabs. With precise observations, he corrected the solar year's length and refined the understanding of his work influenced thinkers as far afield as Copernicus. We drift now eastward to where a great observatory rises in the 13th century under the guidance of Nasir al-Din. With no telescope still centuries away, he and his team construct intricate instruments, armillary spheres, mural quadrants, and astrolabes, as precise as the prayers they help to time. Tusi couple, a mathematical device, would later help unravel the motion of the planets. It echoes silently in Copernicus's future heliocentric model. And in Samarkand, under the patronage of Ulugh Beg, a prince astronomer of the Timurid Empire, a vast observatory is born. There, in the 15th century, scholars map the heavens with astounding accuracy. Ulugh Beg himself calculates the length of the year with precision unmatched for centuries to come. His star catalogue, listing over 1,000 stars, would remain a cornerstone of celestial navigation until the age of telescopes. But Islamic astronomy was not only the realm of mathematicians and scholars, it was woven into the very rhythm of daily life. The faithful looked skyward to determine the 5 prayer times, each tied to the sun's position: dawn, noon, afternoon, sunset, and night. The crescent moon marked the beginning of each new month, guiding the sacred calendar. Astronomers, or muwakkits, served in mosques to calculate prayer and fasting times with care and skill. The astrolabe, a marvel of ingenuity, found its perfect form in the Islamic world. A handheld map of the heavens, it could tell time, measure the altitude of stars, determine direction, and even aid in surveying and architecture. Crafted in bronze and adorned with calligraphy, it was both a scientific tool and a work of art. One could hold the sky in the palm of the hand and read it like a sacred text. And throughout these centuries, Islamic scholars upheld a philosophy that balanced science with faith. The universe was a creation of awe, and to study it was an act of worship. As Ibn al-Haytham, the father of optics, wrote, the duty of the man who investigates the writings of scientists, if learning the truth is his goal, is to make himself an enemy of all that he reads, and to attack it from every side. It was this spirit, critical, curious, contemplative, that drove the golden age of Islamic astronomy. Imagine, dreamer, a scholar seated in a rooftop observatory. In the air is cool, the sky glows with stars, an oil lamp flickers beside scrolls of parchment, its flames swaying in rhythm with the scholar's breath. He adjusts an astro. He notes the rise of somewhere, a muezzin's voice echoes across the hills. In this moment, science and devotion are one. The Islamic star maps were drawn not only on parchment but within the hearts of those who saw the heavens as an unfolding manuscript, a sacred geometry of spheres, orbits, and light. Each star, a verse, each movement, a rhythm in the divine symphony. As we close this chapter, we feel the vast continuity of from Ur to Cairo, from Samarkand to Seville. The stars guide not only sailors and nomads, but seekers, those who yearn to understand the language written above. Let us follow that yearning now to a world where stars whispered across the oceans, where Polynesian navigators read the sky not with books, but with memory. Let us set sail into the Pacific night, where knowledge is sung into the waves and the stars chart the path home. Far from the marble columns of Greece and the golden domes of Samarkand, across a vast ocean where no writing was etched in stone, a different kind of star knowledge flourished. In the open blue vastness of the Pacific, where islands shimmer like emeralds scattered on silk, lived a people who read the heavens not with books but with the soul. They were the Polynesian wayfinders, navigators of immense skill and memory. With no compass, no sextant, no written star maps, they crossed thousands of miles of open water in double-hulled canoes, guided solely by the sun, the waves, the birds, and the stars. To understand their mastery is to enter a world where the sky is a song, the ocean a storyteller, and each journey a sacred ritual passed through generations. These oceanic explorers came from a lineage stretching back to the Lapita peoples, whose ceramic shards still sleep beneath sands from Samoa to the Solomon Islands. Over centuries, they voyaged eastward, first to Tonga and Fiji, then further into the deep Pacific. They reached Tahiti, the Marquesas, Rapa Nui, and Hawaii. Eventually, they touched the shores of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and wove a living thread across a third of the Earth's surface. At the heart of this navigation was the star compass, an oral and mental system of celestial orientation. The horizon was divided into specific houses, or star rising points, each associated with known stars or constellations. The navigator would memorize which stars rose and set in which parts of the sky at different times of year. By watching where a star rose on the horizon and tracking it across the night, they maintained their course over open ocean. Each star path was paired with seasonal knowledge. For instance, Hokolotha, Polynesian name for Arcturus, signaled specific times for planting and sailing. Makalii, the Pleiades, marked the new year and rituals of renewal. These were not just stars, they were living waypoints, family, ancestors shining above. But the sky was only part of the code. The sea was a memory system as well. Skilled navigators read the wave patterns, or refraction swells, formed by distant islands pushing back the ocean's rhythm. They noted the behavior of birds at sea, the color of clouds and water, and the presence of drifting debris. The canoe was an observatory, the journey a form of active meditation. Let us imagine now a Polynesian navigator, seated cross-legged at the center of a voyaging canoe. The sails whisper overhead. The ocean breathes around the hull. The sun sets, and the sky deepens to indigo. He lifts his face calm and still. As stars begin to pierce the darkness, one by one, he identifies them not with names alone, but with stories, chants, lineages. He sings softly under his breath, a memory passed down from his teacher and his teacher's teacher. The song is a map. The stars above form its melody. In darkness, the stars become companions. Altair Antairis Capella Canopus, each one rises in order, marking the way home, or out to new lands. One of the most sacred skills in traditional navigation is dead reckoning, the ability to estimate position based on speed, direction, and time. The navigator must hold this entire mental map in silence, adjusting constantly for current, wind, and drift. There are no charts, no corrections, no second chances. The sea either confirms your memory or swallows it. For centuries, this knowledge was passed orally. It was protected, cherished, kept within master navigator lineages called Puo. A Pua navigator was more than a sailor. They were a priest of the ocean, a keeper of celestial rhythm, and a guardian of ancestral wisdom. And yet, in the age of colonization and modern maps, this knowledge began to fade. The songs grew quiet. The teachers grew old. The canoes remained docked, but not forever. In the 1970s, a renaissance began. A group of Pacific Islanders, scholars, and elders built a replica canoe Hakala and sought to revive the art of wayfinding. They turned to the few remaining traditional navigators, especially Mopialek from the island of Satawal in Micronesia. He agreed to teach them not with instruments, but with stars, wind, and heart. In 1976, Hokolos sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti using only traditional navigation. No compass, no GPS. The voyage took over a month. It was successful, it was sacred, it awakened a generation. Since then, the knowledge has spread again across the ocean. New navigators have been initiated. Star compasses have been memorized once more. The ancient art lives. To gaze at the Pacific night skies to enter this lineage. Above the dark water, stars shine brighter than elsewhere, unpolluted, perfect. The sea below reflects them in gentle ripples. Between them sails a canoe, guided not by numbers, but by trust. Trust in memory, trust in rhythm, trust in the sky. As we leave this chapter, close your eyes and feel the sway of the boat. The stars stretch from horizon to horizon. A chant drifts on the wind, soft and steady. You are far from land but not lost. The sky has never left you. Next we travel inland, two stone cities nestled high among the Andes, where a sun, shadow, and star were bound together in a sacred web of gold and silence. High in the Andes, where the air is thin and the mountains pierce the clouds like ancient sentinels, the Inca civilization flourished in golden silence. Their cities rose from the stone itself, terraced and aligned with celestial precision, nestled among peaks that touched the breath of the gods. But it was not only their architecture that reached upward, it was their eyes, their thoughts, their understanding of the sky. To the Inca, the heavens were a living mirror of the earth. The stars did not simply shine, they spoke, guided, warned, and blessed. And perhaps most unique of all, the Inca saw not only the light in the sky, but the dark. Unlike most cultures that formed constellations from stars, the Inca identified dark constellations, shapes formed from the dark spaces within the Milky Way, where interstellar dust blocks the starlight. These dark patches were not emptiness to them, but present celestial animals, spirit, and symbols that guided the rhythms of life. They called the Milky Way Mayu, the celestial river. It mirrored the earthly Vilcanota River, linking sky and land in a sacred reflection. Within Mayu, they saw the Lamaha, baby nestled beside her, the fox, the toad, the serpent, and the puma. These forms were vivid to Incas who passed the shapes down through oral tradition and sacred ritual. Imagine lying on a cool stone terrace in Machu Picchu long before the Spanish arrived. The wind carries the scent of moss and mountain herbs. Above, the Milky Way arches across the heavens. You don't look at the stars, you look into the darkness between them. There, emerging from shadow, the great llama stretches her neck to drink from the river of light. She guards the flocks. She guards the calendar. For in the Inca world, the sky governed everything. The Inca calendar, complex and precise, combined solar, lunar, and stellar observations. The year was divided into 12 months, each with its own festivals, agricultural duties, and astronomical events. The timing of planting, harvesting, and even warfare was determined by the sun's journey and the return of specific stars. One of the most sacred times was the Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun, held during the winter solstice in June. In the Inca capital and navel of the world, priests and nobles gathered at dawn. As the first ray of sunlight broke over the mountains, it passed through carefully aligned windows and corridors in temples like Caracancia, striking golden altars with divine fire. Offerings were made, chants were sung, the bond between sun and people was renewed. Their great structures were not merely temples, they were instruments. Consider the Intihuatana at Machu Picchu, often called the hitching post of the sun. This finely carved granite pillar aligns with the sun's path during equinoxes and solstices. During these moments, the shadows vanish or point with perfect clarity. The stone did not bind, the sun had honored it, acknowledged its eternal rhythm. All across the Inca Empire, from Lake Titicaca to the cloud-wrapped slopes of the Amazon, sacred sites were aligned with solar events. Rock towers called mojones were placed on mountaintops to mark the rise and set of the sun during specific dates. Lines called Sikhs radiated outward from Cusco, connecting Waka Sacred Plazas to Sacred Sky Grid. The sun Inti was their father, the moon Mama Kila was their mother. Together they ruled the heavens and watched over all below. Solar eclipses were seen as moments of cosmic imbalance. The people would shout, sing, and beat drums to chase away the dark. Lunar eclipses were more mysterious warnings, perhaps, or transitions between worlds. But the Inca also honored Venus, called Chaska, whose shimmering beauty just before dawn or just after sunset held deep significance. Her appearance in the morning sky foretold the coming seasons. Her absence was a silence that called for prayer. In their woven textiles, you can see the heavens in coded patterns of stars, rivers, and animals. In their golden sun masks, the brilliance of Inti is captured. In their music, played on panpipes and drums, the cycles of the heavens echo in rhythm and tone. They were not isolated in this. In the highlands and coasts of the Andes, cultures before the Inca had also aligned temples and pyramids with the stars. The Nazca, famed for their desert, etched enormous shapes into the earth, many aligned with the rising and setting of key stars. The Tiwanaku, long before the Inca, built temples that tracked the sun across solstices and equinoxes. The Inca inherited, refined, and honored this legacy. And then the Spanish conquest unraveled the thread of oral tradition. Temples were torn down, priests executed, the dark constellations were forgotten by most. The sky, once sacred, was rendered mute beneath a foreign cross. But the stars did not forget. In remote Andean villages, elders still pass stories of the llama in the sky. Farmers still plant by the rising of certain stars. In whispered Quechua, fragments of the old calendar linger. The Inca sky, though veiled, still breathes. As we leave this chapter, picture the high Andean night. The cold air carries no sound but the hush of wind over stone. Above, the Milky Way glows bright, wide, alive, and in its shadowed depths, the llama watches still. The stars speak, if you know how to listen. Now, let us turn eastward once more into the jungles of Mesoamerica, where pyramids touch the sky and entire cities were built as reflections of the stars. Deep within the emerald jungles of Mesoamerica, where howler monkeys cry into misty dawn and the scent of ceiba trees lingers in humid air, the ancient Maya built cities of stone, stairways of light, and temples that echoed the stars. They were not merely architects, but timekeepers, mathematicians of the sacred, astronomers of astonishing precision. In their world, time was not linear, but circular, recursive, divine. The Maya believed that everything, every movement of the stars, every beat of the drum, every turn of the sun was part of a cosmic rhythm laid down by gods before the world began. And through their mastery of astronomy and calendrical cycles, they sought not to control the heavens, but to align with them. Their observatories still rise above the forest canopy. At Uxmal, Palenque, and Tikal temples and pyramids stand in geometric harmony with celestial events. These were not random alignments, they were deliberate, calculated across generations. The Maya sky was a sacred clock, and their cities were its cogs. At End, the temple of Kukulkunda, feathered serpent, Deity becomes a serpent itself during the spring and autumn. On these days, sunlight cascades down the stepped pyramid in such a way that shadows form the shape of a serpent undulating down the back. The illusion is so precise that it appears as if Kukulkan descends from the heavens to meet the earth. This interplay of light, shadow, and stone is not only art, it is astronomy carved in limestone, but it is in their calendars that the Maya genius shines bright. Unlike our single Gregorian calendar, the Maya used multiple systems. The Tsukana 260-day sacred calendar, used for divination, ritual, and the unfolding of spiritual cycles. It paired 20-day names with 13 numbers in a rotating matrix of cosmic significance. The Harbor 365-day solar calendar, organized into 18 months of 20 days each, with a final 5-day period called Waya, a time of danger and liminality, when the boundaries between worlds grew thin. These two calendars interlocked like gears in a great celestial mechanism, creating a 52-year cycle known as the calendar round, after which the same combination of dates would repeat. And then there was the long countergrand calendar tracking the days from the mythical beginning of time, which the Maya placed at August 11, 3114 BCE. This calendar extended across tons, and nuance of time, both mathematical and sacred. The completion of the 13th Bactin in 2012 was misunderstood by modern media as a doomsday prophecy. In truth, it was a turning of the great Wheeler renewal, not an ending. The Maya tracked the movements of the sun, moon, Venus, and eclipses with astonishing accuracy. Their Venus tables, found in the Dresden Codex, predict the planet's cycles down to a fraction of a day. Venus, associated with the god Kukulkan in warfare, was both feared and revered. Its heliacal rising when it reappears in the dawn sky often preceded important rituals or battles. Venus was not a distant orb, but a divine signal, and they watched the eclipses with keen eyes. The Maya understood the eclipse year, a cycle of about 173 days, during which solar and lunar eclipses could occur. They carved these into codices and temple walls, warning of shifts in power, portals between worlds, and times of sacrifice. Let us imagine, now, a Maya priest astronomer standing atop the observatory at El. The tower's windows are aligned with celestial events. It is dawn. Mist rises from the jungle below. He observes the first sliver of Venus as it breaks the horizon. He makes a mark on a bark paper codex, adjusts a count, and murmurs a prayer. Somewhere in the temple, a drum begins to sound. For the Maya, numbers were sacred. 13 levels of heaven, 9 levels of the underworld. 20 fingers and toes made a base 20 number system, allowing for extraordinary calendrical calculations. Time was not simply measured. It was sacralized, woven into myth, history, and prophecy. Their sky gods were many. Itzamna, the high god, ruled over time and writing. Chak, the rain god, danced in the clouds, his axe creating thunder. The hero twins, and played in the underworld and rose to become the sun and the moon. Their story, told in the Popova, wove myth and cosmos together in a tapestry of rebirth and celestial motion. And when they built with stars in mind. At Stairway's record, the rulers reigns in sync with cosmic events. At Palenque, tombs are aligned with the winter solstice sunset. At Tikal, twin pyramid complexes mirror solstitia axes. The earth itself became a sky mirror, a sacred map of heavens above. Though the Spanish conquest silenced many Maya voices, the knowledge was not lost. In villages across Guatemala, Belize, and Chiapas, elders still keep the Chilumbalum books of prophecy and memory. The Tezocan is still consulted for planting, weddings, and healing. Children are named according to their birth date's sacred qualities. The stars, though scarred by colonization, still shine in Maya eyes. As this chapter closes, let us sit beneath the canopy of the jungle night. The stars glisten like dew on unseen leaves. The Milky Way flows overhead. A jaguar calls in the distance. The sky above is not random, it is story, order, invitation. And so, we carry that invitation northward to the deserts and plains of North America, where indigenous peoples read the heavens not with instruments but with stories woven into earth and star alike. Across the vast and varied lands of North America, from windswept plains to canyon deserts, from icy northern forests to rolling eastern hills, indigenous peoples have long looked to the stars. But unlike the rigid grids of later Western maps, Native American sky traditions are rooted in relationship, in rhythm, in sacred memory. For these cultures, the stars were not distant science, they were ancestors, teachers, spirits, and guides. Each nation held its own sky lore, passed down through songs, stories, dances, and rituals. Each constellation was a story, each season a turning page in the sky's a living book. The knowledge was oral, embodied, and precise, not etched in stone, but lived in ceremony, watched from mountaintops, and honored in silence. Let us begin with the Lakota, whose homelands stretch across the northern plains. To them, the Milky Way is known as Wi-Ha-Pi, the spirit road. It is the path taken by souls after death, returning to the star world from which they came. Life and death, then, are not an end and beginning but a cycle, mirrored in the sky. Their star knowledge is encoded in the sacred hoop, a celestial circle of constellations that includes parts of what modern astronomy calls Orion, the Pleiades, and the Big Dipper. These stars align with Lakota ceremonies throughout the year, particularly the sun dance, which is guided by the stars' seasonal positions. Their sacred sites such as Bear Butte and the Black Hills are aligned with celestial points, anchoring star knowledge to Earth. To the Navajo, or the stars form a sacred framework known as Sky People. In their cosmology, The holy people placed the stars in the sky as a form of balance and harmony. The Big Dipper is seen as a revolving male figure, and Orion as a great warrior. The Pleiades are Deliae, often associated with seeds and beginnings, reminding that to plant and harvest in accordance with the sacred cycles. In traditional Navajo stories, the constellations were cast into the sky by the trickster god Coyote, who tossed them with reckless abandon when he grew impatient. This story teaches that even chaos plays a role in creation. The stars, while ordered, contain mystery, an echo of the unknowable in all things. Among the Anisi peoples of the Great Lakes region, sky knowledge is embedded in seasonal migration and stories of transformation. One of the central sky figures is Nanaboso, a culture hero whose adventures are mirrored in the stars, as different constellations rise and fall throughout the seasons. They guide the people's movements: when to gather, when to hunt, when to fast, when to rest. Let us drift further west, to the ancestral lands of the Hopi, whose villages sit atop mesas like ancient observatories. Their calendar is tied closely to solar observation. For centuries, sun watchers have stood at precise rock outcroppings to mark the sun's position on the horizon. These alignments guide the timing of ceremonies such as the soil winter solstice ritual, which calls for the sun's return and the renewal of life. Among the Chumash of California, petroglyphs and rock paintings depict solar and lunar cycles. Some sites like Painted Cave show evidence of celestial alignments tied to the winter solstice and lunar eclipses. The Chumash recognize Venus as the morning star, associated with both beauty and warning. In the southwest, the ancestral Puebloan peoples constructed observatories of stone at Fajada Butte in Chaco Canyon. A spiral petroglyph is illuminated by sun daggers of light during the solstices and equinoxes. This sacred mountain becomes a cosmic calendar, its markings tracking time with sun and shadow rather than gears and glass. Consider now the Mississippian culture, builders of great earthworks and mounds in the eastern woodlands. At Cahokia, near modern-day St. Louis, wooden posts once formed Woodhenge, a circular solar calendar. From its center, observers could mark the sun's rising at solstices and equinoxes, tying ceremony to celestial rhythm. The sun was central to their cosmology, a source of fertility, kingship, and cosmic order. And then there is the Pleiades. This cluster of stars appears in the myths of nearly every Native American culture. To the Cherokee, they are 7 boys who danced into the sky, leaving behind their grieving mothers. To the Blackfoot, they are a group of lost children, seeking warmth and family in the sky. Too many, they mark the beginning of winter, the time when stories are told and the veil between worlds grows thin. The oral tradition carried this knowledge with beauty and care. Storytellers, often elders, would recount star myths only during the winter months, when the stars were high and the people gathered close. These were not tales for entertainment alone. They were education, guidance, and cosmic alignment. Imagine now, dreamer, sitting by a fire beneath an open prairie sky. The air is cold, the stars sharp and endless. An elder points to the sky. She does not use a telescope. She does not speak of gravity or parallax. She tells you a story of how the stars remember, of how your ancestors walked those paths. And suddenly, you see it. Not just stars, a language older than books, though many of these traditions were suppressed by colonization, boarding schools, and forced silence they endure. Today, indigenous astronomers, cultural keepers, and elders are reviving this wisdom, teaching it anew and reuniting sky and ceremony. As we leave this chapter, let the constellations shimmer not just as points of light, but as stories, living, breathing companions that have never stopped speaking. Now, let us journey to a land where stars were carved into stone wheels and vision, quests aligned with equinox light, and ancient circle in the high mountains of what is now Wyoming. High in the wind-swept Bighorn Mountains of what is now northern Wyoming, nearly 10,000 feet above sea level, lies a sacred structure unlike any other in North America. Great stone circle known as the Bighorn Medicine Wheel, laid upon the alpine tundra, where clouds kiss the earth and eagles trace wide arcs across the sky. It has watched the stars rise and fall for centuries, perhaps millennia. This is not merely a place of stones. It is a calendar, a compass, a sanctuary, and above all, a mirror, one that reflects not the face of the stars alone, but the soul of those who once watched them from this high place. The medicine wheel consists of a central cairn, from which 28 spokes radiate outward to a surrounding circle of stones. Along its perimeter lie 6 other cairns, spaced deliberately. While its exact age is still debated, archaeological evidence suggests that indigenous peoples used and maintained it as far back as 700 years ago, though some believe its origins reach deeper into time. But what gives this place its enduring mystery is not merely its form, but its function. In the 1970s, astronomer John A. Eddy studied the alignments of the Bighorn Wheel and proposed that several of its spokes and cairns aligned with the rising and setting points of key stars at solstice, Rigel and Sirius, as well as the summer solstice sunrise. These stars, which figure prominently in other ancient traditions, from the pyramids of Egypt to the myths of Mesopotamia, were carefully watched by the ancestors of North America's plains cultures. Was this wheel a place to mark the turning of the year, to signal the arrival of sacred ceremonies or the right moment for hunting and harvest? Or was it a site for vision quests, where young seekers sat in silence, fasting beneath the sky, waiting for a sign? To indigenous nations such as the Crow, Blackfoot Lakota, and Shoshone, the medicine wheel is not a single object or location, but a powerful symbol of wholeness, of cyclical time, interconnectedness, and the four sacred directions. Its form echoes the cycle of the seasons, the movement of the sun, the rotations of the stars, and the sacred hoop of life itself. The four cardinal directions, east to southwest and north, each hold distinct meaning. East, birth, sunrise, spring; the eagle; south, youth, growth, summer; the coyote; west, maturity, sunset, autumn; the bear; north, elderhood, wisdom, winter; the buffalo. Overlay this spiritual compass with the turning of the sky, and you begin to see what the medicine wheel truly is: a map of existence. Some wheels align with solstice, sunrise, and sunset points. Others, like the bighorn wheel, reflect stellar alignments, forming a complex interplay between ground and sky. They were not all identical. Each wheel was shaped by the land, the tribe, and the purpose for which it was built. Throughout the plains, other wheels have been found: Mageville in Alberta, Moose Mountain, Fort Smith, each a slight variation on the sacred theme. Together, they form a constellation upon the land. Let us imagine now a dreamer, a seeker seated within the central cairn of the bighorn wheel. The stars begin to rise over the eastern horizon. The wind whispers through alpine grasses. He watches Aldebaran, the red eye of the celestial bull, ascend between the stones. He knows that when this star returns, it is time. Time for the sun dance, time for renewal, time for prayer. No clock ticks here, no calendar hangs upon the wall. Time flows with the sun's shadow, the flight of hawks, the blooming of alpine flowers. The stars return like old friends, and the circle endures. For many indigenous cultures, the vision quest is a central rite of passage, one that often takes place upon a hill, in solitude, beneath the stars. The seeker fasts, prays, and waits for a cinevision, a dream, a message from the ancestors or the spirits of the sky. In this high place, surrounded by ancient stones and vast horizons, the heavens seem closer, the stars brighter, the answers more clear. The medicine wheel is not a relic. It is a living teacher. It continues to guide, to ground, to remind. Even today, indigenous peoples return to these sites. They bring offerings, tobacco, ties, feathers, stones, and whisper prayers into the wind. The wheel still turns. The sky still sings. As we close this chapter, picture the wheel beneath moonlight, each stone casting a soft shadow, the sky a dome of fire, the land silent but not still. Somewhere, a drum begins, and the stars, ancient and new, return to their places once more. Let us follow them now into a world where maps of stars were scratched onto clay tablets, where myths became mechanisms, and where the boundary between magic and mathematics blurred in a spiral of bronze gears. Beneath the turquoise waves of the Aegean Sea, in the year 1901, sponge divers searching for their livelihood stumbled upon a shipwreck near the island of Antioch. What they found would puzzle the world for more than a century: a corroded lump of bronze and wood, unremarkable at first glance, but hiding within it a secret: gears, dials, and the remnants of a forgotten brilliance. This was the Antikythera mechanism, often called the world's first analog computer, a device so intricate, so unexpectedly advanced, that it would take over 2,000 years for humanity to recreate anything quite like it. But what exactly did it do? It mapped the sky. It predicted the movements of the sun and moon, tracked eclipses, charted the cycles of planets, and modeled the complex rhythms of time itself. Crafted sometime around 150 BCE, possibly in the workshops of Rhodes, this mechanical marvel was made not in the age of telescopes, but in the twilight of the Hellenistic world, a final flame of ancient Greek ingenuity, burning quietly beneath the waves for millennia. The Antikythera mechanism was small enough to fit in a shoebox, but inside it were at least 30 bronze gears, finely cut and perfectly meshed. These gears worked together to simulate the orbits of celestial bodies, accounting even for the moon's irregular, elliptical motion through the epicyclic gearing system. On its face, dias displayed the position of the zodiac constellations, the lunar phases, and even a prediction of eclipses through the Saros cycle, a span of about 18 years, after which lunar and solar eclipses repeat in nearly the same order. The device's back panel included two spirodels, one for the 4-year Olympiad cycle, another for the Metonic cycle, which aligned the lunar and solar calendars over 19 years. How could such precision emerge from an age of chisel and candlelight? To the ancient Greeks, cosmos meant not merely universe, but order, a harmonious whole. From Pythagoras to Archimedes, the belief that mathematics was the language of the heavens shaped philosophy, architecture, and astronomy alike. The Antikythera mechanism was born of this worldview, a desire not merely to observe the heavens, but to model them, to bring the infinite into the grasp of the hand. Let us picture the workshop now. A dusty room lit by oil lamps, bronze filings scattered across the floor. A philosopher-inventor leans over a polished gear, testing its teeth against a spindle. Outside, the Aegean glows in the afternoon sun. A scroll lies open nearby, perhaps the Almagest, perhaps something now lost. The stars are silent, but he hears them, whirring in the back of his mind. When the mechanism turned, it turned time. With a single rotation of a crank, the heavens unfolded, the moon waned, Venus rose, eclipses darkened the earth. This was no toy. It was a mechanical oracle, a bridge between astronomy, astrology, and sacred timekeeping. And then it vanished, forgotten after the shipwreck that claimed it, buried by sand, salt, and silence. Its rediscovery was a whisper from history, a reminder that the ancients knew more than we often credit. For centuries, the brilliance of Hellenistic science was obscured. The Antikythera mechanism, half fossil, half revelation, told a different story. Modern scholars took decades to understand its complexity. It was not until X-ray tomography and 3D scanning in the early 21st century that the internal gears were fully revealed. What they found astonished even the most seasoned historians of science: the level of mechanical sophistication, gear ratios that modeled lunar velocity, inscriptions detailing planetary periods, and even a tiny dial predicting the color of an upcoming eclipse was not matched until the clockmakers of the 14th century. So why was it lost? The Antikythera mechanism appears to be unique, though hints of similar devices are mentioned in texts by Cicero and Posi. Perhaps others were made only to perish in fire or time. Perhaps it was simply too expensive, too esoteric, too sacred. The Roman conquest, followed by the slow decline of Greek scientific tradition, may have left its secrets buried for good. And yet, it lived, and not in continuity, but in resurrection. Today replicas sit in museums, ticking softly beneath glass. Engineers study it, philosophers marvel at it, poets write of it, and dreamers like you, dear listener, imagine what else lies waiting beneath the waves of forgotten time. The Antikythera mechanism did not predict fate, but it did something perhaps more powerful. It reflected the human longing for order in the sky. It translated celestial mystery into motion and matter. It was the cosmos in miniature, a machine of wonder, wisdom, and whispering gears. As we leave this chapter, close your eyes and imagine turning that ancient crank. Hear the gears move, see the moon wax, the stars rotate, the eclipse shadow fall. Time unfolds at your fingertips. We now drift eastward again, this time far across oceans, to a land of mountain temples, cosmic mandalas spinning prayer wheels, where time is not counted, but meditated upon. High among the cloud-veiled peaks of the Himalayas, where the world breathes slowly and snow falls like the silence of centuries, the heavens have long been a place not just of observation but of awakening. Here, in the sacred land of Tibet, the sky is not simply a canopy above, but a reflection of the inner cosmos. It is drawn not with compass and ruler, but with compassion and contemplation, and it takes form in one of Tibet's most powerful spiritual symbols, a mandala. In its simplest sense, is a geometric representation of the universe, a cosmic diagram that maps the realms of existence, both seen and unseen. But when Tibetan monks create a sky mandala, they do more than illustrate the heavens. They invoke them. They become them. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, cosmic order is not discovered through observation alone. It is realized through meditation, visualization, and sacred art. The stars, planets, and cycles of time are not separate from the practitioner. They reside within. To understand the sky is to understand the mind. The outer cosmos and the inner awareness are mirrors of each other. Let us enter, now, a monastery on a high plateau. The scent of juniper smoke drifts through stone corridors, chanting echoes softly from an inner chamber. Within, a group of monks kneel over a dark cloth, pouring grains of colored sand into delicate lines. The image taking shape is a mandala of time, a star map, a celestial temple, a wheel of becoming. The process takes days, weeks, sometimes months. Each grain is placed with precision, patience, and prayer. There is no haste. The mandala is a meditation. It represents both the macrocosm of the universe and the microcosm of the human spirit. Every color, every symbol, every spiral reflects an element of cosmic truth. Many of these mandalas incorporate celestial patterns, lunar cycles, planetary positions, the zodiacal animals of the Tibetan calendar, and the 9 planets of Indian astrology, which deeply influence Tibetan cosmology. These are not mapped in the same manner as Western astronomy, but are woven into a system of karma, rebirth, and harmony. Time in Tibetan thought flows in countless vast poetic ages that dwarf human lifespans. The stars and planets are not merely rocks in space. They are deities, guardians, and symbols of inner forces. One of the most sacred mandalas is the Kali Chakra, or Wheel of Time. Its complexity is staggering. It encodes astronomical calculations, cosmological layers, mythic narratives, and instructions for enlightenment. The color chakra is both a map of the universe and a guide to transcending it. The outer wheel represents the physical world's seasons, stars, elements. The inner wheel speaks of the body, the breath, and energy channels. The secret wheel, known only through deep practice, reveals the pure awareness beyond all forms. To gaze upon the Kala Chakra is to see time itself not as seconds, minutes, or hours, but as a mandala of transformation. The sun and moon, the eclipses, the solstices will spin within its embrace, turning in rhythm with the soul's evil. Unlike the Antikythera mechanism, which calculated time with gears, the Tibetan mandala transcends time through presence. One is mechanical, the other metaphysical, but both seek the same treasure: harmony with the eternal. Even the destruction of the mundalit's careful dismantling at the end of the ritual is part of the lesson. After weeks of work, the sand is swept into a single pile, then poured into a river. Nothing is permanent, even the stars must pass. And yet, even in impermanence, there is precision. Tibetan skywatching was practical as well as spiritual. Monks maintained lunar calendars to time festivals and rituals. Astrologers, known as sippers, calculated birth charts and predicted auspicious days based on planetary positions. These were not superstitions, but sacred sciences, acts of aligning one's life with the deeper rhythms of the universe. In their high-altitude observatories, free from the haze of cities, they watched the skies. The path of the moon, the ecliptic of the sun, the wandering lights of the planet Sol were studied, honored, and included in their mandalas and texts. The cosmos was a sacred clock, yes, but it was also a mirror of mind. Let us return now to the mandala in progress. The monks pause. A horn bellows across the plateau. Above, a full moon rises, casting silver over the snow. They bow, they breathe, they return to their sand, each grain, a star, each line, a path, each color, a prayer. And when it is done, when the last circle is placed, they will bow once more, and then let it go, into the wind, into the water, back into the cosmos. As we leave this chapter, Drama, imagine yourself as a grain of that sacred sand, for a time, placed in perfect pattern, then released, carried onward, still part of the mandala though scattered across the river of stars. Let us now journey to the north, where night swallows day in winter, and lights dance across the heavens like ancestral fires, a realm where the sky is alive with spirit sand, the auroras whispering green and violet flame. Above the Arctic Circle, where winter holds the earth in its icy breath and silence blankets the world in white, the sky becomes a cathedral. In these northern lands, the heavens do not merely shine, they move, they dance, they whisper. Here, in the ancestral homelands of the Inuit, Chukchi, and other Arctic peoples, the stars are not distant ornaments. They are spirits, ancestors, and watchers. And when the aurora borealis flares across the frozen firmament in sweeping veils of green, purple, and crimson, the sky itself seems to speak. To live in the Arctic is to live with the sky as a companion. There are weeks where the sun never rises, and others when it never sets. But always, above the tundra and frozen sea, the stars hold their vigil, and with them, stories. For the Inuit, the aurora is often seen as a sign of the spirit world. In many traditions, it is said that the lights are souls of the dead, playing across the sky, dancing, celebrating, or watching over the living. Some say they are spirits playing a celestial game, tossing a walrus skull like a ball back and forth. Others see the aurora as torches of ancestors, guiding souls to the next world. In some Inuit communities, the northern lights are associated with birth and conception. Elders tell stories of children conceived beneath the shimmering auroras being blessed with strong destinies or a special sight. But one must show respect. Whistling at the lights, for instance, is considered dangerous, as it might call the spirits down or invite misfortune. For the indigenous people of northern Scandinavia, the aurora is deeply sacred. Known in parts of culture as guvzahas, meaning the light you can hear, it was approached with both awe and caution. It was believed to be the energy of departed souls or the power of the gods themselves. People were warned not to draw attention to it, not to wave, whistle, or sing lest it descend and take them away. The stars as well, not as distant, static points, but as beacons of ancestral stories. The sky held maps, not for sea navigation like the Polynesians, but for the migration of reindeer, the timing of ceremonies, and the telling of myth. The stars were linked with Joik's traditional songs that carry memory, emotion, and identity. In Siberia, the Chukchi and Iwenki also told stories of spirits in the sky. The stars were often seen as campfires of ancestors, far off in the night. The Pleiades, that mysterious cluster visible from every corner of the earth, appears again. To some northern peoples, it is a sled team, racing across the heavens. To others, a group of hunters forever chasing a great bear, whose constellation we call Ursa Major. And what of Orion? In many Arctic cultures, he is known not as a hunter, but as a giant, or a great spirit. His belt forms the handle of a bow. His steps echo across the sky. He moves slowly, deliberately, across the dome of stars, reminding all below that the turning of the sky is not random but sacred. Imagine now, dreamer, standing alone on the Arctic tundra in the heart of winter. Your breath steams into the dark. The snow crunches beneath your boots. Above, the stars wheel in majestic stillness, and then it begins. A ribbon of green unfurls across the sky, like a veil tugged by invisible hands. It ripples, shimmers, bends, and folds upon itself. Then comes the violet, the deep red, the sudden flash of white. You can almost hear it, a soft crackling, a rustle of cosmic wind. You are not alone. The spirits are watching. For thousands of years, people here have looked upward and listened. They've read the sky not in charts or equations, but in feeling, story, and presence. The sky was a place of dialogue, not data. Even today, this reverence remains. Many Arctic peoples continue to weave star knowledge into ceremony, into language, into lullabies. The sky is not a museum, it is alive. The auroras, once feared by outsiders as omens or dragons, are for the northern peoples a blessing, a glimpse beyond the veil, a reminder that this world is not all there is, that above us, beside us, within us, the cosmos continues to dance. As this chapter closes, imagine lying upon a fur-lined sled, wrapped in warmth, staring into the sky. The lights above are not just particles or plasma, they are messages, they are memory, and they have been dancing long before you arrived and will continue long after. Next we journey southward again, to ancient India, where temples align with stars, and the rhythms of the cosmos are not only observed but sung into the Vedas. In the sacred land of ancient India, where the Ganges flows like a vein of silver through the heart of the subcontinent, the sky was not just studied, it was invoked. Here, beneath monsoon clouds and blazing suns, in forests of sages and cities of kings, the stars were seen as the divine breath of the cosmos. And from this breath came one of the oldest and most intricate traditions of celestial wisdom, Vedic astronomy. Long before the construction of observatories in marble or the invention of instruments, the seers rishis of the Vedic age sat in silence and listened. They composed hymns, known as Vedas, that described the rising and setting of stars, the cycles of the moon, the dance of the sun. Their language was not that of numbers, but of sound, rhythm, and reverence. In the Rig Veda, one of the world's oldest sacred texts, the cosmos is described as an ordered whole, the great cosmic order. Day and night were seen as divine beings. The Ashvins brought the dawn. Surya, the sun god, rode his chariot across the sky, pulled by 7 horses symbolizing the days of the week or the spectrum of light. Soma, the moon deity, waxed and waned in a rhythm that mirrored the cycle of life and sacrifice. These were not mere metaphors. The Vedic seers encoded precise astronomical truths into their hymn. They described the ecliptic path, the phases of the moon, and even the precession of the equinoxes hinted at in poetic form. Time itself was measured in yugas, vast cycles spanning thousands and millions of years, marking the ages of human and divine evolution. And with this knowledge came ritual, the need to align human activity with celestial motion. Let us walk now through a Vedic fire altar, or yena, being prepared for a solstice ceremony. The ground is measured carefully. The bricks are placed with mathematical exactness. The altar takes the form of an eagle in flight, Garuda, the celestial mount of Vishnu. Every angle aligns with the cardinal directions. Every chant corresponds to a planetary motion. The fire is not just an offering, it is a bridge between earth and sky. As Vedic astronomy evolved, it gave rise to Jyotisha, the science of light, what we now call Hindu astrology. But Jyotisha was never simply about predicting fate. It was a way to harmonize the inner world with the outer. It measured the movement of the greyest, the planetary deities that influence human affairs, and aligned their paths with moments of ritual, meditation, and pilgrimage. Among the most significant systems in Jyotisha is the division of the sky into 27 lunar mansions, or each nakshatra represents a specific region of the moon's journey, spanning 13.3 degrees of the zodiac. They are named for stars and star clusters, Rohini Ash. Each is imbued with mythic meaning, symbolic animals, and spiritual attributes. The nakshatra, in which a person is born, shapes their character, destiny, and inner nature. But more than that, the nakshatras were used to time rituals, determine agricultural cycles, and even build temples aligned to the stars. Indeed, throughout India, temples serve as stone calendars, aligned precisely to celestial events. At Konark, the Sun Temple in Orissa is shaped like a solar chariot, with 24 carved wheels representing the hours of the day and intricate depictions of planetary motion. The temple itself is oriented so that the first rays of the sun strike the sanctum at dawn during the equinox. At Meenakshi Temple in Madurai and Chidambaram, dedicated to the cosmic dancer, the layout of shrines corresponds to the chakras of the body and the constellations of the sky. The sacred architecture becomes a map of the human form, the cosmic form, and the celestial rhythm. And then there is Ujjain, once a center of Indian astronomical calculation. There a vast gnomon, or shadow-casting pillar, helped track the sun's zenith. In later centuries, Janta, Mantastone observatories in Jaipur and Delhi rose like geometric poems, with their vast sundials, star-tracking arcs, and zodiacal instruments built of sandstone and marble. Yet perhaps the most mystical element of Indian star wisdom is its cyclical understanding of time. The Chatur-yuga system describes for ages Satya-yuga, the golden age of truth and harmony, Treta-yuga, where virtue declines slightly, Dvapara-yuga, where conflict grows and Dharma fades, Kali-yuga, the age of darkness and forgetting, the age we are said to inhabit now, and after Kali, the cycle begins again. This cosmic timekeeping is vast, and age can span hundreds of thousands of years. It teaches that the rise and fall of civilizations, like the phases of the moon, are natural, inevitable, and divinely orchestrated. There is no ultimate ending, only transformation. Imagine now, dreamer, standing in the inner sanctum of a temple during a festival night. The walls glow with oil lamps, incense curls toward the rafters, the priest chants Vedic verses, and above, a full moon rises. Somewhere in the distance a conch shell sounds. You feel it not just in your ears, but in your bones, the turning of the stars, the rhythm of the gods. In Vedic astronomy, there is no separation between the sacred and the scientific. Every number is a mantra, every planet, a deity, every breath, a reflection of the universal pulse. As this chapter ends, we carry with us the sound of chanting beneath a starlit dome, the geometry of temple stones aligned to sunrise, and the vision of time not as a ticking clock but as an eternal unfolding lotus. Now, let us sail westward to another sacred island where priestesses once read the sky through pillars of marble, and a city worshipped a goddess whose wisdom flowed like moonlight into the sea. In the heart of the Mediterranean, surrounded by sapphire waters and crowned with wild mountains, the island of Crete once pulsed with a mystery all its own. Long before classical Greece rose in marble and myth, the Minoan civilization flourished, here, matriarchal, sea-bound culture whose secrets still shimmer beneath layers of time. The Minoans left no epic texts, no armies carved in stone. What they left instead was art, fluid, vibrant, and teeming with symbols of nature and sky. And among these symbols, woven into their frescoes, pottery, and palaces, is the quiet presence of the stars. In Minoan Crete, women played a central role in spiritual life, depicted in flowing gowns with bare breasts and serpents in hand. The Minoan priestesses seem not merely ritual leaders, but intermediaries between earth and cosmos. They are shown standing in open courtyards, raising their arms to the sky. In these images, gesture becomes invocation, and architecture becomes a celestial altar. Let us walk now into the Palace of Gnosis, its walls painted with dolphins, lilies, and spirals. But beneath the sea blue and saffron lies a deeper geometry. The palace is oriented with precision, its great central court aligned to the rising sun at the equinox. Light pours through columns and corridors, illuminating specific rooms at specific times of year. It was not simply a home for royalty, it was a temple of time. Recent archaeoastronomical studies suggest that Minoan sites such as Knossos and Phaistos were constructed with stellar and solar alignments in mind. Windows and doorways frame the heliacal rising of stars, particularly Spica, the brightest star in the constellation Virgo, which may have been linked with harvest deities or feminine divinities. Spica's appearance in the dawn sky around the time of the autumn harvest would have signaled seasonal transitions, just as Sirius did for the Egyptians. And in a world where fertility, agriculture, and ritual were intertwined, star cycles were sacred rhythms to be honored, celebrated, and woven into the body of the land. But Crete's sky watching went beyond mere observation. It became embodiment. The famous horns of consecration, found across Minoan sites, have long been thought to symbolize bullhorns. Yet some researchers suggest they also served as solar sighting devices, framing the rising or setting sun during key calendrical moments. These horns, placed on rooftops and altars, tied the heavens to the earth through form and shadow. The spiral motif, so common in Minoan art, mirrors not only seashells and waves but the celestial spiral, the turning of stars around the North Star. In the sacred caves of Mount Ida and Mount Dicte, where myths would later place the birth of Zeus, ancient rituals honored earth and sky together, merging the womb of stone with the wheel of stars above. Minoan religion seems to have celebrated cycles of birth and death, moon and sun, seed and fruit. The lunar calendar likely guided festivals, and the phases of the moon shaped the timing of offerings, dances, and harvest rites. And always, it was the priestesses, those poised women of fresco and legend who, their arms outstretched in ecstasy or reverence, they may have danced beneath the stars in rhythmic ceremonies, echoing the motion of the heavens. Their sacred tools, mirrors, vessels, serpents reflected a cosmology that was not distant or but immediate, embodied, and feminine. Imagine, dreamer, standing in the central court of Gnosis on the morning of the equinox. The sun crests the ridge to the east. A beam of light slices through the eastern portico, illuminating a sacred hearth. Around you, bells jingle softly as women begin to chant. Their voices rise in spirals, echoing up into the painted halls. Above, the sky lightens, and spica fades in the growing dawn. You feel it not a ritual for show, but a communion with the stars. Though the Minoans left no surviving texts to explain their astronomy, their buildings, images, and myths whisper still. After their decline, perhaps by natural disaster or Mycenaean conquest, echoes of their celestial wisdom traveled onward, into Greek myth, into Dionysian rites, into the goddess cults of later antiquity, and perhaps even further. As this chapter closes, imagine the priestess at her altar, one hand raised to the moon, one upon the earth. She is still, she is listening. The stars are singing, as they always have. Let us now journey to another island far to the west, across the Atlantic, a place of stoneheads and ocean winds, where the sky was watched by those who carved silence into rock and waited for stars to rise again. These towering stone figures, some over 30 feet tall, gaze inland with solemn faces and long, silent eyes. They are carved from volcanic rock, their backs to the sea, their sight fixed not on the horizon but on the sky. For centuries, the Moai have been called many things: idols, sentinels, relics of a lost culture. But to the people who raised them, they were far more: living ancestors, embodiments of mana, guardians of time, memory, and celestial knowledge. Rapa Nui's ancient culture, like many in Polynesia, was deeply attuned to the rhythms of nature and the heavens. They relied on star navigation, solar observation, and lunar calendars to guide planting, fishing, migration, and ritual. Their isolation did not limit their understanding, it refined it. In the great, uninterrupted ocean sky, they read the movement of the stars like a sacred script. Many Moai are aligned along the Au, the stone platforms upon which they stand, in positions that suggest solar and stellar significance. Some align with solstices, marking the longest and shortest days of the year. Others seem to point toward the heliacal rising of specific stars, such as Canopus or Aldebaran, which held importance in Polynesian navigation and timekeeping. But the Rapa Nui did not only gaze, they wrote it into stone and wood through their mysterious script known as Rongo. Discovered in the 19th century, Rongo is a system of glyphs carved onto wooden tablets, staffs, and ceremonial objects. It remains undeciphered, though. Scholars believe it contains references to astronomical cycles, genealogies, and ritual knowledge. Some glyphs clearly resemble celestial bodhisons, moons, stars, and crescent shapes. Others seem to encode lunar phases and eclipse cycles, with dots and lines echoing tally marks used in calendars. One of the most studied artifacts is the so-called Mammal tablet, which may record a lunar calendar of 30 days, along with symbols for months, tides, and seasonal events. Other tablets appear to track Venus and Mars, whose bright presence in the Rapa Nui night sky was surely watched with reverence. The Mataveri calendar, a series of rock carvings near the ceremonial village of Rongo, further reveals the islanders' astronomical expertise. On this windswept slope, near the cliffs where waves crash hundreds of feet below, a solar calendar was etched into basalt lines pointing toward the setting sun on key dates such as solstice, equinoxes, and the heliacal rising of certain stars. These markers aligned with the Tangata Manu or Birdman cult festival, a central religious rite that bridged the earthly and celestial realms. In the Birdman ritual, held annually, priests and warriors gathered to await the arrival of the sooty tern, a migratory bird whose nesting coincided with the vernal equinox. Its appearance was considered a divine signal, mirroring the rebirth of the sun. The competition to retrieve the first egg from an offshore islet, Motunui, was not simply a test of strength, it was a reenactment of cosmic order, a ritual reenactment of renewal timed with the skies turning. Imagine now, dreamer, standing atop the cliffs of Iran. The sea roars below, endless and blue. The sun dips toward the western horizon, casting long shadows across ancient stone. A Moai watches from its platform, unblinking. You turn your eyes upward. Above, Canopus begins to rise, a flicker of silver against the indigo night. It is time a chant begins. A flame is lit. The sky responds. The Rapa Nui were not a people of conquest or empire. They were a people of stars, of stone, of story. Their world was small, but their imagination vast. And though the Moai are silent now, their gaze still carries the memory of those who read the stars without telescope, who etched time into volcanic cliffs, and who understood that to watch the sky was to remember the soul of a people. As we leave this island, the waves grow quiet. The stars shimmer in the water's reflection. The Moai fade into mist, and yet something lingers, a sense of presence, of guardianship, of a people who once knew the sky so well. They carved its echoes into stone faces. Now, let us make our final stop. We return to a place many have forgotten, where cave ceilings become galaxies, and the first human stories of stars flickered in torchlight. Long before the rise of empires, long before the first written word, And even long before stone circles and pyramids, there were caves, dark, sacred spaces beneath the earthwombs of silence and flickering flame where the first humans looked upward not through stone observatories, but through dreams and shadow. And yet even in this earliest age our ancestors were already looking to the stars. This was the Paleolithic, the deep dawn of human consciousness. And even here, in a world shaped by ice and fire, predator and hunger, the sky spoke and someone listened. In the Lascaux caves of southern France, painted over 17,000 years ago, we see not just the famous bulls, horses, and stags but a curious cluster of dots above the shoulder of a great orb. Some researchers believe these dots represent the Pleiades, just as they appear in the night sky today, grouped, shining, watching. Other interpretations suggest that these are not random, but star maps, remembered and recorded in ochre and flame. In the nearby cave of Chauvet, even older by several thousand years, red and black animal forms dance across walls like constellations of life. The act of painting itself may have mirrored cosmic creation images emerging from darkness as stars emerge from night. The Tassili Nazir cave art of the Sahara shows strange, humanoid figures with star-like heads and arms raised to the sky. Were they deities, shamans in trance? Or were they the first human expressions of astral connection, the first attempt to give shape to what cannot be touched? Even in Paleolithic burials, we see the first alignment with sky and cycle. In Göbekli Tepe, the megalithic sanctuary predating Stonehenge by millennia, the T-shaped pillars may represent anthropomorphic forms aligned to celestial bodies, especially the Belt of Orion, which has appeared again and again in ancient Skaya traditions. But it is not only in stone or pigment that this early star wisdom lingers. It is in ritual. It is in the seasonal return of animals, the cycles of migration, the phases of the moon that dictated movement and rest, the rhythms of fire, of fertility, of feast and famine, all tied to something greater, something above, something timeless. Imagine, now, a Paleolithic night. You sit at the mouth of a cave. The fire crackles beside you. The embers glow like stars fallen to earth. Above, the real stars wheel across a sky unspoiled by any human light. You do not name them, but you know them. You see that one star follows another, that the moon changes, that the sun moves in rhythm with the seasons. You begin to tell stories. You begin to remember. Your child leans on your shoulder and asks, "Where did we come from?" And you point upward. There is no written language, but there is memory, there is wonder, there is silence, and in that silence, a story is born. The story becomes a song. The song becomes a dance. The dance becomes a symbol. The symbol becomes a carving, and the carving becomes the beginning of astronomy. From the Paleolithic caves to the great temples of Egypt, from Stonehenge from Polynesian canoes to Tibetan mandalas, this thread runs unbroken. The sky is the oldest library. The stars, the first teachers. They have watched us change. They have watched us forget. But they have also watched us remember. We were never truly separated from them. We only fell asleep. And now, perhaps, we are waking again, as our journey draws to a close. Dear dreamer, return once more to the cave. The fire is fading. The wind moves softly through ancient stone. Above, Orion rises, the Pleiades shimmer, and the Milky Way arches like a forgotten song. The stars are still there. They always have been. And now, dear dreamer, as our journey beneath the ancient sky comes to its close, let the quiet of the cosmos settle gently around you like starlight falling on still water, like breath exhaled into eternity. You have walked with Sumerian scribes who carved the heavens into clay, and stood beside Egyptian priests who watched stars rise through stone shafts of light. You have sailed with Polynesian wayfinders, charting invisible paths across a living sea, and whispered prayers with shamans beneath auroras that shaman like ancestral songs. From the lunar calendars of the Maya to the spiral time of the Vedas, from the stone circles of forgotten Europe to the mandalas of Tibetan monks, who traced the universe in sand, you have seen that the stars were never distant. They were always near, reflected in water, in memory, in the quiet chamber of the heart. For we have never simply observed the stars. We have listened to them, we have danced beneath them, we have drawn them into temples and tombs, into stories and songs, into wheels of stone and whispered prayers. The sky has always been our mirror. Its turning teaches us of cycles of becoming, of forgetting, of returning. Its silence teaches us to listen not with the ears, but with the soul. And so, as you lie now in your bed, as your breath slows and your body softens, may the memory of this celestial pilgrimage hold you like a gentle current. Let your thoughts drift like clouds through ancient constellations. Let your heart beat aligned with the rhythm of the night sky. You are a part of it, dreamer. You always have been. Above your roof is not simply a ceiling, but a story, a tapestry woven with the breath of ancestors and the dust of stars. If this journey has brought you peace, if it has awakened something soft and sacred in you, we invite you to return. Subscribe, and step once more through time's hidden corridors. Let these stories be your lullaby, your anchor, your doorway into sleep. And if you feel called, share with us, tell us from which corner of the world you gazed at tonight's sky. Let our circle of dreamers widen, from pole to pole, from mountain to sea, beneath the same ancient stars. Until we meet again, sleep well, beloved sleep beneath the same sky as those who came before. Sleep in the hush of the cosmos, where every breath is a constellation, and every dream a rising moon. Let the sky carry you now. Good night.